The gunshot that killed Augustus Emerson's wife still echoed in his mind every night, though 3 years had passed since the Comanche raid that left him alone on his ranch outside Wasco, Oregon. He stood on his porch that October evening in 1877, watching dark clouds gather over the Blue Mountains, knowing a storm was coming and knowing it would find him as alone as ever. Augustus was 31 now, though he felt older. His ranch stretched across 200 acres of high desert plateau, where he raised cattle and horses with only his 2 hired hands, Miguel and young Tom, for company. They lived in the bunkhouse and kept mostly to themselves, which suited Augustus fine. He had learned that silence hurt less than conversation, that work numbed better than whiskey, and that loving anything in this harsh land meant preparing to lose it. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and sagebrush. Augustus pulled his coat tighter, his dark hair whipping across his face. He should head inside, check the fire, make sure the shutters were secure. But something made him linger, scanning the horizon as if waiting for something he could not name. That was when he saw her. A figure on horseback, moving too slowly, hunched against the wind. The horse stumbled, and Augustus was already moving, grabbing his own mount from the stable without bothering to saddle it. He rode hard toward the struggling rider, arriving just as the horse collapsed, throwing its rider into the dust. She was a woman, soaked through despite the rain having not yet started, which meant she had crossed the creek. Her dark blonde hair clung to her face and her dress was torn in several places. Augustus dismounted and knelt beside her, checking for injuries. "Can you hear me?" he asked. Her eyes fluttered open, green as spring grass, and she tried to speak but started coughing instead. Augustus looked at her horse and saw it was lame, foam at its mouth, nearly dead from exhaustion. "I need to get you inside," he said. "Can you ride?" She nodded weakly, and Augustus lifted her onto his horse before swinging up behind her. She slumped against him, and he could feel her shivering violently. He urged his mount toward home as the first drops of rain began to fall. By the time they reached the ranch house, the storm had unleashed its full fury. Thunder cracked across the sky like rifle shots, and rain fell in sheets that turned the yard to mud. Augustus half carried the woman inside, kicking the door shut behind them. The fire he had left burning provided the only light. He helped her to the chair nearest the hearth and began stoking the flames higher. "I need to get you out of those wet clothes," he said, then quickly added, "I will fetch you something dry and turn my back. You are safe here." She nodded, still shivering too hard to speak. Augustus went to his bedroom and pulled out one of his flannel shirts and a pair of woolen pants, knowing they would be far too large but would have to do. He brought them back and handed them to her, then turned to face the wall. He heard the wet fabric hitting the floor, heard her struggling with the dry clothes, heard her sharp intake of breath that might have been pain or simply the relief of warmth. "You can turn around," she said finally, her voice hoarse. Augustus turned to find her drowning in his clothes, the shirt hanging to her knees, the pants rolled up several times at the ankles. Her hair hung in wet tangles around her shoulders, and she was still shaking, but some color had returned to her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Sit closer to the fire," Augustus said, dragging the chair nearer to the hearth. "I will make coffee." He busied himself with the pot and grounds, giving her time to warm up, giving himself time to think. It was unusual for a woman to be traveling alone out here, especially with a storm coming. She was running from something or someone. When the coffee was ready, he poured 2 cups and handed her one. She wrapped both hands around it, breathing in the steam. "What is your name?" Augustus asked gently. "Olivia," she said. "Olivia Sullivan, Augustus Emerson, this is my ranch." He paused. "What were you doing out there?" Olivia stared into her coffee cup. "Running." "From what?" "From whom?" she corrected, and her hands tightened on the cup. "My stepfather. He wanted me to marry a man in town, a merchant twice my age who had paid him for the arrangement. I refused. When he tried to force me, I took one of the horses and left." Augustus felt anger kindle in his chest. Where is home? Was home the Dalles? She looked up at him, and he saw the desperation in her eyes. "I cannot go back. He will find me if I stay anywhere nearby." I rode as far as the horse could carry me, hoping to reach somewhere, anywhere, before the storm hit. "You are 20 miles from the nearest town in this direction," Augustus said. "You would have died out there." "I know." Her voice was barely audible. "I had no choice." They sat in silence, listening to the storm rage outside. The wind howled around the house, and rain hammered against the windows. Augustus studied this woman who had stumbled into his life like a ghost from the storm. She was young, perhaps 22 or 23, with a delicate face that could not quite hide the steel beneath. Her hands, he noticed, bore calluses. She was no pampered daughter. "You said your stepfather," Augustus said. "What about your mother?" "Dead. 2 years ago, cholera." Olivia's expression hardened. "He remarried 6 months later. That wife left him after 3 months. That is when he decided to sell me to pay his debts." Augustus stood and paced to the window, watching lightning illuminate the yard. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow, when the storm passes, we will figure out what to do." Olivia set down her coffee cup and stood as well, though she swayed slightly, still weak. "I have no place else to go." Those words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Augustus turned from the window to face her, seeing the pride it cost her to admit such vulnerability, seeing also the quiet strength that had gotten her this far. "Then you will stay until you do," he said. Relief washed over her features, and for a moment Augustus thought she might cry, but she blinked rapidly and nodded instead. "I can work. I can cook, clean, tend animals. I will not be a burden." "You are injured and exhausted," Augustus said. "Tonight you rest. We will discuss work tomorrow." He showed her to the bedroom, the only bedroom, insisting she take it while he would sleep on the sofa near the fire. She protested, but he would not hear otherwise. Once she was settled, he returned to the main room and stood before the fire, wondering what he had just agreed to. The storm continued through the night. Augustus lay on the sofa, listening to the thunder and the creaking of the house, unable to sleep. His mind kept returning to Olivia Sullivan's green eyes and the way she had said those words. "I have no place else to go." He knew that feeling too well. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and bright. Augustus rose early, as was his habit, and found Miguel and young Tom already in the barn, tending to the horses. "We saw you ride in last night," Miguel said, a question in his dark eyes. "Who is she?" "A woman fleeing a bad situation," Augustus said. "She will be staying for a while." Miguel nodded, asking nothing more. Young Tom, who was barely 19 and curious about everything, opened his mouth to speak but caught Miguel's warning glance and closed it again. Augustus returned to the house to find Olivia already awake, standing in the kitchen in his overlarge clothes, examining the cast-iron stove as if determining its secrets. "Good morning," she said. "I thought I might make breakfast, but I did not want to presume." "Please," Augustus said. "I am not much of a cook. Usually I just fry whatever is handy." Olivia smiled, the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face entirely. "I can do better than that. Do you have eggs?" They fell into an easy rhythm. Olivia found the larder and began pulling out supplies while Augustus built up the fire in the stove. She moved with practiced efficiency, cracking eggs, slicing bacon, mixing batter for biscuits. Within half an hour, the kitchen smelled like heaven, and Augustus realized he could not remember the last time anyone had cooked a real meal in this house. They ate at the rough wooden table, and Augustus found himself watching her, noting the way she savored each bite as if she had not eaten well in days, which was probably true. "Tell me about the ranch," Olivia said. "How long have you been here?" "5 years. I bought the land with money I saved from working cattle drives, built the house myself with help." Augustus paused, debating how much to share. "I was married. She died 3 years ago." "I am sorry," Olivia said softly. "It was a Comanche raid. She was in the barn when they came. By the time I got there." He stopped, the old pain still sharp. "Anyway, I have been alone since then. Miguel and young Tom work for me, but they keep to themselves." "Is that how you prefer it?" Augustus considered the question. "It is easier." "Easier," Olivia repeated, "not better." "Sometimes they are the same thing." She met his eyes across the table, and understanding passed between them. They were both running from pain, both hiding in their own ways. The days that followed established a new pattern. Olivia took over the household tasks with a competence that spoke of long practice. She cooked, cleaned, mended clothes, and tended the kitchen garden that had gone wild with neglect. Augustus found himself coming in for lunch now instead of eating jerky in the saddle, found his clothes repaired, and his house smelling of bread and wood polish. He told himself it was practical, that having help around the house made sense. But he could not deny that he looked forward to the evenings most of all, when the work was done, and they sat by the fire, talking. Olivia had a sharp mind and a quick wit. She read everything she could get her hands on, and Augustus found himself riding into Wasco to buy newspapers and books just to see her face light up. They discussed politics and philosophy, shared stories of their pasts, debated everything from cattle breeding to whether Oregon would see more settlers now that the railroad was expanding west. "You miss it, do not you?" Olivia asked one evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival. "Being around people." Augustus looked up from the harness he was mending. "I have people. Miguel, Tom, you. That is not what I mean. You have a whole town just a few hours away, but you never go except for supplies. You isolate yourself." "Is that not what you are doing?" he countered. "No," Olivia said firmly. "I am hiding, which is different. I would love to go into town to meet people, to have a life, but I cannot risk my stepfather finding me. You choose this loneliness. I do not understand why." Augustus set down the harness. "When Sarah died, everyone wanted to help. They brought food, offered sympathy, told me it would get better. But their kindness just made it worse because it reminded me every day of what I had lost. Out here, I can forget sometimes. Out here, the pain is just mine." Olivia came to sit beside him on the sofa. "But the joy is only yours too." "That is too high a price, Augustus." The way she said his name, soft and certain, made something in his chest tighten. She was sitting close enough that he could smell the lavender soap she used, could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "What if I lose again?" he asked quietly. "What if you never try?" They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them, something unspoken but deeply felt growing in the space they shared. November came with frost and the first hints of winter. Augustus taught Olivia to ride his gentlest mare, and she took to it with determination, though she fell more than once. He tried not to hover, but found himself watching constantly, ready to catch her. One afternoon, while riding the fence line together, checking for breaks, they stopped to rest beside a creek. The cottonwoods had turned golden and the water ran clear and cold. "This land is beautiful," Olivia said, dismounting and walking to the water's edge. "Harsh, but beautiful." Augustus joined her, watching the way the sunlight caught in her hair, now grown longer and healthier than when she had arrived. "It takes a certain kind of person to love it. Do you? Love it, I mean. I did once. I think I could again." Olivia turned to face him, and the look in her eyes made his heart race. "What changed? You arrived," he said before he could stop himself. The words hung between them, honest and raw. Olivia's breath caught, and Augustus realized how close they were standing, close enough that he could reach out and touch her if he dared. "Augustus," she whispered. He cupped her face in his hands, calloused and rough against her soft skin. "Tell me to stop and I will." "Do not stop," she said. He kissed her then, gentle at first, then deeper as she responded, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck. She tasted of coffee and hope, and Augustus felt something he thought had died with Sarah stir back to life. This was different, though. What he felt for Olivia was not a replacement for what he had lost, but something entirely new, built on understanding and shared loneliness transformed into connection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Olivia rested her forehead against his chest. "I did not expect this," she said. "Neither did I. I am still running. My stepfather might still find me." Augustus tipped her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. "Then we will face him together." They rode back to the ranch hand in hand, and that night, Olivia did not sleep in the bedroom alone. They came together with a tenderness born of mutual loneliness healed, and Augustus marveled at how right it felt to hold her, to wake with her beside him, to imagine mornings like this stretching into forever. But forever had a way of being interrupted. The trouble came a week later on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Augustus was in the barn with Miguel when young Tom came running from the house. "Riders coming," he panted. 3 of them. They stopped at the gate. Augustus felt ice form in his stomach. "Get Olivia inside. Tell her to stay away from the windows." He grabbed his rifle and walked out to meet the riders, who had indeed stopped at the property gate. 3 men on horseback, led by a heavy-set man in a fine coat, unsuited to ranch country. Behind him rode 2 harder-looking types, hired guns by the look of them. "Can I help you?" Augustus called. The heavy-set man urged his horse forward. "I am looking for my stepdaughter. I have reason to believe she might have come this way." Olivia Sullivan, about 23, blonde hair, green eyes. "What makes you think she came here?" A man in the Dalles saw her heading this direction. "I have been checking every ranch and farm for 2 weeks. The man's smile did not reach his eyes. "I am very concerned about her welfare. She is not well, prone to flights of fancy and hysteria. She needs family to care for her." "Is that so?" Augustus said flatly. "I am Harold Sullivan. If you have seen her, I am prepared to offer a reward for her safe return." Augustus felt his grip tighten on the rifle. This man, this Harold Sullivan, was everything Olivia had described and worse. He could see the calculation in those cold eyes, the barely concealed anger at having to chase down property he considered his to sell. "I have not seen anyone matching that description," Augustus lied smoothly. "But if I do, where can I reach you?" Harold's eyes narrowed, clearly not believing him but unable to prove otherwise. "I am staying at the hotel in Wasco for another week. After that, you can reach me through the marshal in the Dalles." He paused. "There is also the matter of horse theft. The horse she took was quite valuable. Anyone harboring a thief could face serious consequences." The threat was clear. Augustus smiled coldly. "I will keep that in mind. Now this is private property and you are not welcome. I suggest you leave." For a moment, tension crackled in the air. The 2 hired guns shifted in their saddles, hands near their weapons. Augustus did not move, his rifle held loose but ready. Finally, Harold turned his horse. "We will be going, but I will find her, Mr. Emerson. That is a promise." They rode away, and Augustus watched until they disappeared over the rise. Miguel appeared at his elbow. "He knows she is here," the older man said quietly. "Yes." "What will you do?" Augustus turned back to the house, where he could see Olivia's pale face at the window. "Whatever I must." Inside, Olivia was pacing frantically. "He will come back. He will not give up. Maybe I should just go, head further west, find somewhere else to hide." "No," Augustus said firmly. "Running did not work. It will never work. He will always find you eventually." "Then what do you suggest?" "That I turn myself over. I suggest we get married." The words fell into sudden silence. Olivia stopped pacing and stared at him. "What?" Augustus moved closer, taking her hands in his. "Marry me, Olivia. Once you are my wife, legally bound to me, he has no claim on you. The horse becomes a family matter, not theft. You would be under my protection, and I promise you I will not let him take you." "Augustus, you cannot marry me just to save me." "That is not why I am asking." He pulled her close, his voice dropping to something tender and fierce. "I love you, Olivia. I think I have since the moment you looked at me with those green eyes and told me you had no place else to go. I want you to stay, not as a guest or a housekeeper, but as my wife. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to build something with you, something real and lasting. So yes, marrying you will protect you from Harold Sullivan, but that is just one reason among many." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "I love you too. I have been so afraid to say it, afraid that this was too good to be real, that it would be taken away." "Then marry me. Let me stand beside you. Let me be your place to go." "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, Augustus, I will marry you." They married 3 days later in the small church in Wasco, with Miguel and young Tom as witnesses and the local minister officiating. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that Augustus had bought in town, and he wore his best suit, which he had not touched since Sarah's funeral. Standing there, watching Olivia walk toward him down the aisle, Augustus felt the past finally release its grip. This was not betrayal. This was life continuing, love returning, hope renewed. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Augustus kissed Olivia with a tenderness that made the old minister clear his throat and Miguel smile. They were signing the marriage certificate when the church door banged open. Harold Sullivan stood in the doorway, his face red with rage. "Stop this immediately. That woman is under my guardianship. This marriage is illegal." The minister looked up, frowning. "Miss Sullivan is 23 years old, well past the age of majority. She requires no guardian's permission to marry. She is mentally unfit. I have documents." "Then you should have brought them," Augustus said, stepping between Harold and Olivia. "The marriage is legal and complete. Olivia is my wife now. You have no authority over her." Harold's hand moved toward his coat, and Augustus tensed, but Miguel was suddenly there, his own pistol drawn and aimed steadily. "I would not," Miguel said quietly. The hired guns had not entered the church, and Harold was alone and outmaneuvered. His face purpled with fury, but he was beaten and he knew it. "This is not over," he snarled. "I will bring the law down on both of you. Theft, conspiracy, fraud. Do that," Augustus said. "Bring whatever you want. My wife took a horse that her mother owned before she died, which makes it family property, not theft. As for conspiracy and fraud, I invite you to try to prove that in any court. Now get out of this church before I have you removed." Harold stared at them with pure hatred, then turned and stalked out. Through the window they watched him mount his horse and ride away at a gallop. Olivia sagged against Augustus, shaking. "What if he does come back with the law?" The minister cleared his throat. "If I may, Mrs. Emerson, I have known the marshal in the Dalles for 20 years. He is a fair man. If Mr. Sullivan does go to him with this tale, the marshal will look into it properly. He will find that you are of age, legally married, and that the accusations of theft and mental incompetence are unfounded. Bitter stepfathers making trouble for stepdaughters who escape their authority is not unheard of, and the law does not look kindly on it. "Thank you," Olivia whispered. They finished signing the documents, and Augustus paid the minister handsomely for his trouble and his timely intervention. Miguel and young Tom congratulated them, Miguel shaking Augustus's hand firmly and young Tom blushing when Olivia kissed his cheek in thanks. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, both of them processing what had happened, what it meant. When they arrived home, Augustus helped Olivia down from the wagon and swept her into his arms, carrying her across the threshold as tradition demanded. "Welcome home, Mrs. Emerson," he said. Olivia laughed, the sound bright and free, and kissed him soundly. "It feels right, being called that. Being here, being yours." "And I am yours," Augustus said, setting her down gently, "for as long as we both live." That night they celebrated their marriage properly, with a fine dinner that Olivia prepared and a joy that had been missing from the ranch for far too long. They made love with the freedom of being truly committed, no longer stolen moments but a shared life beginning. The days turned to weeks, and Harold Sullivan did not return. Augustus made inquiries through the minister, and learned that Harold had indeed gone to the marshal in the Dalles, who had dismissed his complaints after investigating the situation. Olivia was legally married, legally free, and the matter of the horse was indeed a family dispute that the law had no interest in pursuing. Furious and thwarted, Harold had returned to the Dalles and his debts, leaving Olivia alone at last. Winter came in full force, blanketing the ranch in snow and forcing everyone indoors more often. Augustus found he did not mind. The house that had been a lonely shell was now a home, filled with Olivia's presence, her laughter, her love. She had taken to ranch life with enthusiasm, learning to help with the animals, keeping meticulous records of supplies and breeding schedules, making the ranch run more smoothly than it had in years. But more than that, she had brought Augustus back to life. He found himself smiling again, looking forward to each day instead of just enduring it. They talked for hours by the fire, made plans for the spring, dreamed of expanding the ranch, maybe having children someday. Christmas came, and Olivia insisted on celebrating properly. She baked and decorated, and Augustus rode into town to buy gifts and invite Miguel and young Tom to join them for dinner. It was the first real Christmas he had celebrated since Sarah died, and though he felt a moment of guilt, it passed quickly. Sarah would have wanted him to live, to love again. She had been that kind of person on Christmas Eve, after Miguel and young Tom had retired to the bunkhouse, full of good food and pie. Augustus gave Olivia her gift. It was a locket, simple but beautiful, with their wedding date engraved inside. "Oh, Augustus," she breathed, "it is perfect. I wanted you to have something that showed you belong here, that you have a place." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy ones. "I have more than a place. I have a home. I have you. I never thought I would feel safe again, feel happy again, but I do." "So do I," Augustus admitted. "After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. I thought I would just exist until I did not anymore. But you changed that. You gave me a reason to live again, not just survive." They held each other close, and outside the snow fell soft and clean, covering the world in white. Spring arrived with the usual chaos of calving season and foaling. Olivia proved invaluable, staying up through the night to help with difficult births, learning to bottle feed calves that lost their mothers, working alongside Augustus with a determination that made him fall in love with her all over again. One evening in late April, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the blue mountains purple and gold, Olivia took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "I have something to tell you," she said softly. Augustus looked at her, saw the hope and nervousness in her face, and understood immediately. "A baby. Yes, I am almost certain. I have been waiting to be sure before I said anything." Joy flooded through him, pure and uncomplicated. "When?" "Late October, I think. Near the anniversary of the night you found me." Augustus pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed with emotion. "I cannot believe it. We are going to have a child." "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, searching his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Augustus said, kissing her deeply. "You have given me everything, Olivia. Everything I thought I had lost forever." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer. Olivia remained active, insisting on keeping up with her usual tasks despite Augustus's protective hovering. They prepared the bedroom that would become the nursery, and Augustus built a cradle with his own hands, carving their initials and the baby's expected birth date into the headboard. Miguel and young Tom were excited too, promising to teach the child to ride as soon as it was old enough. The ranch felt alive in a way it never had before, filled with anticipation and possibility. But as October approached, Augustus found himself growing anxious. He could not help remembering Sarah, could not help fearing that history might repeat itself. Olivia noticed his increasing worry and confronted him one evening. "You are afraid I will die," she said bluntly. Augustus started to deny it, then stopped. Olivia deserved honesty. "Yes, I cannot lose you, Olivia. I cannot go through that again." "You will not lose me," she said firmly. "I am strong and the pregnancy has been healthy. We have already arranged for the midwife from town to come and stay the last 2 weeks. Everything will be fine." "You cannot promise that." "No," Olivia admitted. "But I can promise that I will fight with everything I have to stay with you, to raise our child together. I love you too much to leave if I can help it." Augustus held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the baby move between them. "I love you more than I have words for." "Then trust that love is stronger than fear," Olivia whispered. The baby came on October 28, 1878, almost exactly 1 year after Olivia had stumbled into Augustus's life. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Augustus's worst fears seemed ready to come true. But Olivia was strong and the midwife was skilled, and when dawn broke over the blue mountains, a baby's cry filled the house. "A boy," the midwife announced, wrapping the infant and placing him in Olivia's arms. "Healthy and loud." Augustus knelt beside the bed, looking at his wife and son, and felt tears stream down his face unchecked. Olivia looked exhausted but radiant, her hair damp with sweat, her face glowing with joy. "Look what we made," she said softly. "Augustus, look at our son." The baby had dark hair like Augustus and green eyes like Olivia. His tiny hand gripped Augustus's finger with surprising strength, and Augustus felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "What should we name him?" Olivia asked. Augustus had been thinking about this for months. "What about Joseph?" "Joseph Andrew Emerson. After your father and mine," Olivia said, smiling through happy tears. "It is perfect. Hello, Joseph. Welcome to the world." The first year of Joseph's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and constant wonder. Augustus had never known he could love something so fiercely, so completely. Watching Joseph grow, seeing him smile for the first time, hearing his first laugh, these simple moments filled Augustus with a joy he had not imagined possible. Olivia was an exceptional mother, patient and loving but also practical. She managed to care for Joseph while still helping run the ranch, often carrying him in a sling while she worked in the garden or checked on the chickens. She sang to him constantly, lullabies her own mother had taught her, and Augustus would often find them together in the rocking chair, both asleep, looking so peaceful it made his chest ache. The ranch prospered. With Olivia's organizational skills and Augustus's knowledge of cattle and horses, they expanded the operation, buying more land and increasing their herd. They hired another hand, a quiet man named Peter who worked hard and asked no questions, giving them the help they needed as the ranch grew. When Joseph was 2 years old, Olivia became pregnant again. This time, Augustus was less fearful. He had seen her strength during Joseph's birth, and he trusted now in a way he had not been able to before. Their daughter, Margaret Rose, arrived in the spring of 1881, during a rainstorm that reminded them both of the night they had met. She had Olivia's blonde hair and Augustus's dark eyes, and she was as different from Joseph as possible. Where Joseph was active and boisterous, Margaret was calm and observant, watching everything with solemn intelligence. "We have a family," Olivia said one evening, watching Augustus play with both children on the floor. Joseph was trying to build a tower of blocks while Margaret chewed on a cloth doll. "A real family." "We do," Augustus agreed, scooping up Margaret and making her giggle. "Did you ever imagine this that night in the storm?" "Honestly, no, I was just trying to survive. I thought maybe I would find work somewhere, live quietly, alone. I never dreamed I would find you." "I am grateful for that storm every day," Augustus said. "It brought me back to life." As the children grew, the ranch became their classroom. Augustus taught Joseph to ride, starting him on a gentle pony when he was 4. Olivia taught both children to read, using old newspapers and the few books they owned, supplemented by new ones Augustus ordered from back east. They learned arithmetic by helping count cattle and measure feed, learned geography by studying maps of the territories, learned history from their parents' stories of the changing West. Joseph grew into a sturdy boy, fascinated by horses and determined to be a rancher like his father. Margaret was quieter but no less capable, showing an aptitude for working with the animals that surprised everyone. At 5 years old, she could calm a spooked horse with just her voice and had a way with the cattle dogs that bordered on magical. By 1885, the Emerson Ranch was one of the most successful in the region. Augustus had earned a reputation as an honest dealer and a skilled horseman, and Olivia was known throughout the county for her kindness and her pies, which she sold at the market in Wasco to raise money for the new school being built in town. They had become part of the community in a way Augustus had never expected. After years of isolation, he found himself looking forward to trips to town, to seeing neighbors, to the church socials Olivia insisted they attend. She had drawn him out of his shell gently but persistently, showing him that being part of something larger did not mean losing himself. One summer evening, as they sat on the porch watching Joseph and Margaret chase fireflies in the yard, Olivia leaned against Augustus's shoulder with a contented sigh. "You ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "How do you mean?" "If the storm had not come that night, if you had not found me, if Harold had succeeded in forcing me to marry that merchant." Augustus shuddered at the thought. "I try not to. The idea of you trapped in that life, of never having met you, having this family, it is unbearable." "I would have been miserable," Olivia said quietly. "I think I would have run again eventually, kept running until I ran out of places to go. But instead I found you and you gave me a home. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Augustus corrected. "I was dying out here, Olivia, just slowly and quietly. You saved me as much as I saved you." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching their children play. Joseph was 9 now, tall for his age and confident. Margaret was 6, blonde braids flying as she ran, her laughter like music. "I want another one," Olivia said suddenly. Augustus looked at her in surprise. "Another child?" "Yes. I know we have our hands full with these two, and I am 31 now, but I want one more. I want our family to be complete." Augustus considered this, thought about the joy Joseph and Margaret brought, about the house filled with noise and life, about how much love there was to share. "If you want another child, then we will have another child, but only if you are certain." "I will not risk you." "I am certain," Olivia said, kissing him softly. "I have never been more certain of anything." Their third child, a boy they named Daniel Charles, arrived in the spring of 1886. The birth was harder than the first two, Olivia being older now, but she came through it safely, and Daniel was healthy and strong. He had red gold hair that came from neither parent, a genetic gift from some distant ancestor, and a temperament that was pure sunshine. With 3 children, the ranch house felt wonderfully chaotic. Augustus added on to the building, creating more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. Olivia organized the children like a general, assigning chores and lessons, managing the household with efficient love. Joseph, now 10, took his role as eldest seriously, helping with his younger siblings and working alongside his father with increasing skill. Margaret mothered Daniel with fierce devotion, and the two became inseparable despite their age difference. The years passed in a rhythm of seasons and growth. Augustus watched his children learn and thrive, watched Olivia grow more beautiful with each passing year, her face showing lines of laughter and sun, her body strong from years of ranch work. She was 35 now and he was 39, and they had built something extraordinary together. One evening in the fall of 1889, Augustus returned from town with news. He gathered the family around the dinner table, looking serious. "I ran into Harold Sullivan today," he said. Olivia went pale. What was he doing here? Passing through, apparently. "He is heading to California, broke and desperate. He did not recognize me at first, and when he did, he asked if I had ever found his stepdaughter." Augustus paused. "I told him I had married you, that we had 3 children, and that we owned a prosperous ranch. I wanted him to know that you had won, that his cruelty had failed." "What did he say?" Olivia asked. "He said nothing. He just walked away. He looked old, Olivia, and defeated. Whatever power he once had over you is gone completely now." Olivia sat back in her chair, processing this. Then she smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Good. I am glad he knows. I am glad he sees that I am happy that I escaped him completely." "He can never hurt you again," Augustus said firmly. That night, after the children were in bed, they sat on the porch as they had so many times before. The air was crisp with autumn, and the stars were brilliant overhead. 12 years, Olivia said. 12 years since that storm." "Best storm of my life," Augustus replied, pulling her close. "Mine too." She turned to look at him, her green eyes reflecting starlight. "I love you, Augustus Emerson. I love the life we built together. I love our children, our ranch, our friends. I love that I can sit here feeling completely safe and happy, knowing I am exactly where I belong." "I love you too," Augustus said. "You are the strongest, most amazing woman I have ever known. You took a broken man and a lonely ranch and turned them into a family and a home. You are my miracle, Olivia." They kissed under the stars, and it was as sweet as their first kiss by the creek, as passionate as their wedding night, as deep as 12 years of shared life could make it. The children continued to grow. Joseph, at 14, was nearly as tall as Augustus and took on more responsibility around the ranch. He had his father's skill with horses and his mother's head for business. already talking about expanding their breeding program. Margaret, at 11, was reading books on veterinary medicine that Augustus ordered from San Francisco. She had a gift with animals that went beyond normal skill, and Augustus suspected she would end up doing something important in that field, despite the limitations placed on women. Daniel, at 4, was the household comedian, always finding ways to make everyone laugh. He followed his older siblings everywhere, adoring them both, learning from their example. In 1892, Olivia turned 37 and announced she was done having children. "3 is perfect," she declared. "Our family is complete." Augustus agreed readily. Their lives were full and rich, filled with work and love and the constant motion of a busy household. He could not imagine wanting anything more than what they had. That year, they celebrated their 14th wedding anniversary with a party, inviting neighbors and friends from town. The ranch house overflowed with people and laughter, and Augustus looked around at the life he and Olivia had built, feeling blessed beyond measure. Miguel, now gray-haired but still working, raised a toast. "To Augustus and Olivia, who found each other in a storm and built something beautiful in its wake, may you have many more years together." "Hear, hear," the guests chorused, raising their glasses. Later, dancing with Olivia in the yard while a neighbor played fiddle, Augustus pulled her close. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Not a single one," she replied without hesitation. Only that I did not find you sooner." The years continued their steady march. Joseph turned 18 in 1895 and announced he wanted to attend agricultural college in Corvallis. Augustus was proud and supportive, though the house felt empty without his eldest son. Margaret, 15 now, took over more of Joseph's responsibilities, proving herself more than capable. When Joseph returned for the summer after his first year, he brought news that he had met a girl, a professor's daughter named Catherine. He was clearly smitten, and Olivia delighted in teasing him gently about it. "You should invite her to visit," she suggested. "We would love to meet her." Catherine came that August, a smart, practical girl who was not intimidated by ranch life. She won them all over quickly, especially when she rolled up her sleeves and helped with the haying without being asked. By the end of her visit, Augustus could see his son was serious about her, and he approved wholeheartedly. Margaret, meanwhile, had been corresponding with a veterinarian in Portland who had agreed to take her on as an apprentice when she turned 16. It was unusual for a woman, but her letters had demonstrated such knowledge and passion that he was willing to make an exception. "I want to come back here eventually," Margaret explained to her parents, "but I want to learn properly first, to really understand animal medicine. Then I can help ranchers all over the county." "We are so proud of you," Olivia said, hugging her daughter tight. "You are going to do amazing things." Daniel, at 10, was showing an aptitude for mechanics, constantly taking things apart to see how they worked. He had already modified several pieces of ranch equipment to work more efficiently, and Augustus encouraged this curiosity, seeing it as the way of the future. In 1898, Joseph married Catherine in a ceremony at the ranch. It was a beautiful autumn day, and the whole county seemed to turn out for the celebration. Watching his son marry reminded Augustus of his own wedding day, of the fear and hope that had mixed together, of how right it had felt to join his life with Olivia's. "We are getting old," he whispered to her during the dancing. "Speak for yourself," she replied with a grin. "I am only 43 in my prime." "You are as beautiful as the day I found you in that storm," Augustus said seriously. "More so, actually. Age has only improved you." "Flatterer," Olivia said, but she was pleased. Joseph and Catherine built a house on the far edge of the property, and Augustus legally divided the ranch, giving his son half to manage as his own. It was time, he felt, to start stepping back, to let the next generation take over. He was 52 now, still strong but feeling the years of hard work in his joints. In 1900, they became grandparents when Catherine gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after Augustus's first wife. Augustus was moved that his son would honor that memory, and he held his granddaughter with tears in his eyes, thinking about how life circled back on itself in unexpected ways. Margaret returned from Portland that same year, now a licensed veterinarian, one of the first women in Oregon to achieve that distinction. She set up a practice in Wasco and quickly became respected throughout the region for her skill and dedication. Daniel, at 14, was talking about going east to study engineering. Augustus marveled at how different his children's options were from what his had been, how the world was opening up in ways he had never imagined. One evening in the summer of 1902, Augustus and Olivia took a ride out to their favorite spot by the creek. They were alone, the children grown and pursuing their own lives, the ranch running smoothly under Joseph's management. "Remember when we came here after I taught you to ride?" Augustus asked. "I remember every moment we have shared," Olivia said, "every single one." They dismounted and sat by the water, watching it flow past, constant and unchanging. "I have been thinking about the future," Augustus said. "Joseph is running the ranch beautifully. Margaret has her practice. Daniel will leave for school soon. We have done our job, raised our children, built something lasting." "What are you saying?" Olivia asked. "I am saying maybe it is time for us to take things easier, to travel a little, see the places we have only read about, to enjoy the time we have left together without always working so hard." Olivia considered this, then smiled. "I would like that. I would like to see the ocean, to visit San Francisco, maybe even go back east to New York." "Then that is what we will do," Augustus said. "We have earned it." Over the next few years, they did just that. They traveled to San Francisco and stayed in a real hotel, attending the opera and eating in fancy restaurants. They rode the train to Seattle and saw the ocean for the first time, both of them awed by its vastness. They visited Daniel at his engineering school in Boston and marveled at the modern city with its electric lights and trolley cars. But always, they returned to the ranch, to Oregon, to the home they had built together. That was where they belonged, where their roots went deep. In 1907, Augustus was 61 and Olivia was 52. They were sitting on the porch one evening watching the sunset when Olivia took his hand. "It has been a good life," she said softly. "The best," Augustus agreed. "Better than I ever imagined possible." "Do you ever think about that night? The storm, the fear, the uncertainty?" "Sometimes. But mostly I think about everything that came after. I think about the moment I realized I loved you, about our wedding day, about holding each of our children for the first time. I think about all the ordinary moments that made up our extraordinary life." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. "I am so grateful I rode toward your ranch that night. So grateful you found me. So grateful I had the courage to say I had no place else to go. And I am grateful I had the courage to tell you to stay," Augustus replied. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the blue mountains standing eternal in the distance. The ranch sprawled around them, prosperous and well-maintained, a testament to their years of work and love. Joseph and Catherine's children, 3 now, sometimes ran through the yard. Margaret visited weekly, always staying for dinner, sharing stories of the animals she had treated. Daniel wrote letters from Boston, full of excitement about his studies and the modern world he was helping to build. It was everything Augustus had never known to hope for, everything he thought he had lost the right to after Sarah's death. But Olivia had given it all back to him and more. "I love you," he said, simple and true. "I love you too," Olivia replied, "always and forever." The years continued to pass gently. In 1910, Augustus suffered a mild heart attack that scared them both, but from which he recovered. It slowed him down considerably, and he finally retired completely, leaving the ranch entirely in Joseph's capable hands. Margaret married at 35 to a fellow veterinarian, a widower with 2 children of his own. It was a practical match, but also a loving one, and Augustus approved of the way the man looked at his daughter. Daniel returned from Boston with a degree and a business plan to bring electric power to rural Oregon. He was full of ideas and enthusiasm, and though Augustus did not fully understand all the technical details, he was proud of his youngest son's ambition and vision. In 1915, the world was changing rapidly. War raged in Europe, and there was talk that America might join. Augustus, now 69, was grateful he was too old to fight, grateful his sons had established lives that might keep them from being called up. But mostly, he was grateful for Olivia, still beside him, still beautiful, still the center of his world. They moved slower now, their bodies showing the years of hard work, but their love had only deepened with time. One evening in the spring of 1916, as they sat on the porch watching their grandchildren play in the yard, Augustus turned to Olivia. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night, when I asked what you were doing out in the storm?" "I said I was running," Olivia replied, "running from my stepfather. And then you said you had no place else to go." "I remember." Olivia smiled, her face creased with laugh lines and crow's feet, beautiful in a way that youth could never match. "I thought my life was over. I thought I would never be safe, never be happy. Instead, you found a home." "I found more than a home," Olivia corrected gently. "I found love. I found family. I found purpose. I found you, Augustus, and you were everything I did not know I needed." Augustus pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. They had been married 38 years now, together through triumph and hardship, through the raising of children and the building of a legacy. "When I found you in that storm," he said quietly, "I was so lonely I could barely breathe. I thought I would live out my days alone, that I had used up my chance at happiness, but you changed everything." "We saved each other," Olivia said. "That is what love does. It saves us from ourselves, from our fears, from the loneliness that can consume us." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, the same sky they had watched together for nearly 4 decades. Around them, the ranch hummed with life, their children's children playing, Joseph directing the ranch hands, the cattle lowing in the distance. In 1920, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a party that drew people from all over the county. Augustus was 74 now, Olivia 65, both of them gray-haired and moving carefully, but still together, still in love. All 3 of their children came, bringing grandchildren and stories. Miguel, ancient now and long retired, made the trip from where he lived with his daughter in town, tears streaming down his weathered face as he embraced them both. "You two were meant to be," he said in his accented English. "I knew it from the start. The way you looked at each other, even that first day, I knew." The party lasted long into the night, filled with music and dancing and laughter. Augustus watched Olivia hold court, telling stories to the grandchildren, laughing with the neighbors, still the heart of their community despite her years. When it was finally over and they were alone again, they sat on the porch one last time, wrapped in blankets against the cool spring air. 50 years, Olivia marveled, half a century together. "Best 50 years anyone could ask for," Augustus said. "You think we will get 50 more?" Olivia asked, only half joking. Augustus laughed softly. I doubt it, my love. But whatever time we have left, I want to spend every moment of it with you. Then that is what we will do, Olivia agreed. They sat in peaceful silence, hands intertwined, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The ranch settled into its night rhythms around them, familiar and comforting, a symphony they had been listening to for decades. Augustus thought about the lonely man he had been, standing on this same porch 39 years ago, watching a storm approach. He thought about the desperate woman riding toward him through the gathering darkness, fleeing from cruelty and seeking only survival. Neither of them could have imagined this, he thought. This life, this love, this legacy of family and purpose. It had all come from a single act of kindness, from one person choosing to help another in need. Thank you, he said suddenly. Olivia looked at him. For what? For trusting me that night, for staying, for building this life with me, for loving me despite my brokenness and fear. Thank you for finding me, Olivia replied. For giving me a home when I had no place else to go. For loving me not despite my desperation, but because of everything we became together. They kissed, tender and sweet, a kiss that held 50 years of shared life, of joy and sorrow and everything in between. Augustus Emerson died peacefully in his sleep in 1923, at the age of 77, with Olivia beside him as she had been for nearly every night of their marriage. His last words to her were simple. I love you. I will always love you. Olivia lived another 8 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, remaining sharp and engaged until the very end. She never remarried, telling anyone who asked that she had already had the great love of her life and needed no other. When she died in 1931, at 76, she was buried beside Augustus on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, Olivia Sullivan Emerson. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she found her home in love. The ranch continued through the generations, passed down through Joseph's line, each new owner hearing the story of how it all began. How a lonely rancher had saved a desperate woman from a storm, how she had said she had no place else to go, and how from that moment of vulnerability and kindness, an entire legacy of love had grown. The house still stood, expanded and modernized, but essentially the same. The porch where they had spent so many evenings remained, and sometimes, on quiet nights, you could almost feel their presence there. Two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something that would outlast them both. Their great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren walked the same land, worked the same soil, looked out at the same blue mountains. They knew the story by heart, the tale of Augustus and Olivia, of a storm that brought them together and a love that never faded. It became family legend, told and retold, embellished and cherished. But at its heart remained the simple truth. Sometimes the storms that seem bent on destroying us actually carry us exactly where we need to be. Sometimes having no place else to go means finding the one place you were always meant to stay. And sometimes, when we are brave enough to open our hearts despite our fear, despite our pain, despite our absolute certainty that we have nothing left to give, we discover that love has been waiting all along, patient and persistent, ready to rebuild what we thought was lost forever. Augustus and Olivia's story was one of survival transforming into triumph, of loneliness conquered by connection, of two broken people creating something whole and beautiful together. It was a testament to the power of compassion, the resilience of the human heart, and the extraordinary things that can grow from a single moment of choosing hope over despair. Their love had weathered storms both literal and metaphorical. It had survived threat and danger, overcome fear and loss, grown stronger through challenge and hardship. It had created life, built community, established legacy. It had been, in every way that mattered, a love for the ages. And it had all started with a woman fleeing through a storm, a man willing to help, and 5 simple words that changed everything. "I have no place else to go." Those words had been a cry for help, a confession of desperation, an admission of absolute vulnerability. But they had also been, though neither knew it at the time, the beginning of the greatest adventure either would ever know. In the end, that was what their story taught, that our lowest moments can become our greatest blessings, that the times when we think we have nothing left are often when we are about to receive everything. And that home is not a place we find, but something we build with the people who choose to stay beside us through all of life's storms. Augustus and Olivia had built that home together, stone by stone, day by day, choice by choice. They had transformed a lonely ranch into a legacy, a desperate flight into a love story, a storm into the beginning of forever. And though they were gone, their story remained, a reminder that love endures, that kindness matters, that second chances exist, and that sometimes, when we are brave enough to say we have no place else to go, we discover we have finally arrived exactly where we were always meant to be.